Hello, and welcome to another segment of the Coatesville Area Public Library's Oral History Project. I'm talking today with Mr. Lee Carter, Sr., a lifelong resident of Coatesville. Good morning, Mr. Carter. How are you this morning?
I'm fine, Mr. Witmer.
We're very pleased to have you with us today and as a participant in our Oral History Project.
It's an honor for me to be here, sir.
We understand that you were born in Valley Township. I won't give your age away unless you care to.
Hey, listen, Mr. Witmer, I'm very proud to give you my age. I'm 78 years old. 1 week ago, Sunday passed. And I was born in Valley Township, where the old Coatesville Hospital once stood, which is, I believe, a senior home now.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Well, parallel to that building was a row of houses. There were 24 houses up there. And my father worked for Luke and Steel Company, and these were company houses. And we lived in that last, there were three rows of houses, 8 in a row. We lived in the last house in that unit. So that's where I was raised.
But none of them are still standing today.
No, I wish they were. I'd go back and paint every one of them. Had some remarkable times there.
Well, tell me about those times. What was it like growing up in Coatesville 75, 78 years ago?
Well, it was somewhat different than what it is today. Growing up in the west end of Coatesville, we had a cross section of all ethnic groups. We had Polish people, Ukrainians, Italians, blacks. Naturally, there were disagreements, name callings, and that kind of thing, you know. But I went to Craig Ridgeway Junior High School, which no longer stands. It's on Charles Street.
Yes.
And I had to go from my grandmother's house where I lived on Green Road, which was right down behind the old silk mill, sandwiched in between the old silk mill and Luke and Steel Yard was a row of houses, once again owned by the company.
Mm-hmm. And where exactly was the silk mill?
The silk mill, if you were to go in the number 3 gate in the west end, the main entrance to Luke and Steel Company there, where the trucks all go in, and you go in there about 200 yards, you'll come to a long brick building that runs north and south. That was where the silk mill originally was. That is now Luke and Steel Company's police department. And out front of that building, which is now a parking lot, was the big office buildings of Luke and Steel Company, which have been torn down. But as you went down along that building in between after you left when you turned left at the building was a road that went down and curved back into the little development where we lived. And in that the company had a scout house there where we played basketball and that kind of stuff. But it got awfully hot down in the summertime. The silk mill ran 7 days a week, and right across from us was the 206 steel yard with these big hot ingots boiling all the time. So it got awfully hot in there.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah, but it was part of growing up.
What was transportation like back then? I know that there was an electric trolley that ran from Lancaster right through Coatesville and on toward Philadelphia.
Yeah. And there were very few people who had cars. I guess they couldn't afford them. So there were very few automobiles on the road. And most people either walked or, like you said, they took the trolley. The trolley came, I believe, from 69th Street into Westchester. And then it came from Westchester out to 30, and then came west on 30 through Downingtown, through Coatesville, got up to the red light at Strode Avenue and 30. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay. Then they made a left hook, come down Strode Avenue to Valley Road.
Yes.
Okay. Then you made a right turn on Valley Road.
And went west.
Went west. You went into Parksburg, and then that trolley made another right and went back up to 30, and went into Paradise. And then it reversed itself and came back.
How long did this trolley run? When did it finally give up the ghost, so to speak? Do you recall?
Well, as much as I can remember, I remember that trolley there in the early 30s. And I would say 32, someplace around there. Yeah. And it was long after that before they dug the trolley tracks up. I think the last sections of trolley tracks in Coatesville were removed off of Strode Avenue, if I recall right. But it was quite a place.
What did children do for entertainment?
Well, gee, we made up our own games. We didn't have money to buy. Parents didn't have money to buy us baseballs, so we made our baseballs. We took a bunch of rags, and wound them pulled them as tightly together as we could, and wrapped them in tape, black tape, and that was the cover. We made our bats out of tree limbs, and we made our own wagons, scooters. So we got the job done.
Those tape baseballs sound like they needed a lot of maintenance and repair.
Oh yeah, if you got through 3 or 4 innings with one, you better have some more because it was a short ball game.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
How about clothing styles back then?
Well, I remember most of the young boys wore knickers, and if you saw some of those knickers today, you'd laugh yourself to death.
The elastic around
I
the
think
knees?
most of us young guys, and most of us children grew up, I think most of us suffered from a lack of right amount of food, and we were skinny and that kind of stuff. But
And couldn't wait to get old enough to wear long pants.
that's right. But that was the best that our fathers could do, Back in those days, my father was probably working for 10 cents an hour, 9 cents an hour. So that's tough,
How many in your family?
There were 6. 3 of us boys, my sister and mother and father, 6 of us.
So how often did Mother get to the grocery store?
Well, there was another touchy figure. You couldn't go to the store every day because there was something called you needed money. So my mom was great at inventing things. We always had a garden, and she would can, and that carried us through the winter until garden time the next spring. And she made all kinds of dishes, but they were all tasty. And,
Tell us about some of her inventions that you can.
well, I was just talking to my kids, my children come my family, our immediate family, they're very close. I have 5 boys, 2 girls, and they were very close. And there was 6 of us there Sunday, and we were talking about some of the pies that my mother made. She made pear pie. She made green tomato pie, and all kinds of things, But when they were tasty.
Yes.
I don't know what kind of flavor she used then.
But
they
whatever she had on hand is
That's
what
right, that's
went into
right.
the pie.
That's right. That's right. And there was none of this. This stuff about you didn't want any of it. Whatever she made, you ate. Because she wasn't going to make anything else for you, just for your special taste, So,
Well, if things were such a struggle in those days, I'm sure that you would do what you can to help out.
oh yeah.
Tell us about some of the first jobs you may have had.
Well, I remember I used to run errands for everybody in the neighborhood, and you would get a nickel or 3 or 4 pennies, but it didn't matter, that was more than you had before.
Sure.
Yeah. So if you ran enough errands for 3 or 4 pennies or a nickel, and in a day's time, you might have wound up with 35, 40, 50 cents, but that was more than you had previously. So I helped out that way. I picked strawberries, wild strawberries, cherries, blackberries, and after my mother had taken all, as many as she wanted to can or preserve or make jellies of, then I sold those to the neighbors. But there's still, you only got a small amount for them, but the thing that impressed me was more than I had before.
Yes.
2 cents is better in your pocket is worth more than nothing in your pocket. So that part never bothered me. And whatever someone else, whatever your neighbors wanted done, you did. And you didn't question how much they gave you. You did it, and you took them whatever they gave you.
What do you remember about the schools that you attended? Were there any particular teachers that stick in your mind?
Oh yeah, yes. Particularly Craig Ridgway. I never went to segregated school in my life. When I grew up in the West End, I went to Craig Ridgway. It was 9th grade there, and then I went into Coatesville High School. But the thing that impressed me about the teachers, there are teachers there that people speak of racial prejudices and that, but if they had it towards me, no one ever showed it. And what I'm saying to you is that there were teachers there that I had talents, and they recognized it, and they were the ones that encouraged me to continue. Like I was gifted as an athlete. I could play football, baseball, basketball, and I had coaches like Sammy Hefner, who was the mayor of Coatesville. He encouraged me. He played minor league baseball in the Yankees chain. He was an infielder, and he taught me how to play shortstop. He was a second baseman. He taught me how to play shortstop, and this guy taught me so much. By the time I got to high school, I played high school baseball in 9th grade. I had to get a release from Craig Ridgway so that I could play.
So you could play ball for the high school?
High school, yes. But this man taught me so much, that I had developed to the point where I could move into the varsity lineup in Coatesville High School. And the same way there was a lady there by the name of Mrs. Hoare, an English teacher, W-H-O-R-E, tremendous lady, who English teacher, and you either spoke English the way it's supposed to be spoken, or you didn't come in her class. And if you acted up, you got the paddle. They had a paddle back in those days, piece of wood with holes drilled in it, and we had a principal by the name of Wayne McVeigh, about 6'3", big man, about 240 pounds. No one wanted to go face him, because he knew what was coming. But these people stuck out in my mind, and they still stick out in my mind. And when I got into high school, it was the same thing, And I tell people today, whatever I am today, I had nothing to do with. As I told you a little while ago, somebody up above, number one, was responsible for it, and there was a lot of people here that walked on this earth who liked me, and they helped it. And it's not because of me. I don't take no credit for it. I'm only the guy with the message. That's the way I look at it. I don't want anybody praising me. I'm doing my job.
When you were a young man in your early teens, mid-teens, you made the acquaintance of what turned out to be a lifelong friend, Sander Matthews.
Yes.
Tell us about him.
I met Saunders. I played when I grew up in Coatesville. I played back in those days. They had playground baseball, and we play in the like playground baseball consisted of Central Park, Columbia Avenue, and they had their own leagues, you know. So I started there, and then came American Legion, and I met Saunders at the American Legion tryout camps, which were being held at Central Park. Saunders lived in the East End, and I lived in the West End. We'd never met before in our lives. And out of that grew a relationship and a friendship that has lasted from that time up until today. And he's a tremendous man. He's one of the Buffaloes. There are 18 young men from Coatesville who were Buffalo soldiers, and he's one of them. I painted the Buffalo Soldier and for the Buffalo Soldier Commission in White Plains, New York, and he came down to pick it up. And when he saw that man on that horse, he started crying. And next thing I know, there's two of us standing up there hugging each other, and both cried. He's one terrific young man.
For the benefit of our viewers who don't have a background on the Buffalo Soldiers, can you expound a little bit more
Yes.
on how they came to be?
Yes, the Buffalo Soldiers were organized in 1866, 1 year after the end of the Civil War. And the purpose of the Buffalo Soldiers in 1866 started the land rush and the westward movement to get land. And the settlers going west, and they were meeting a lot of resistance from the Indians, different Indian tribes. So the Buffalo Soldiers were organized to escort the settlers through the Indian territory and the west. And they had one other big job, was to see that when the land rush started in Oklahoma, they were there to see that everybody started at the same time and had the equal opportunity to get a chunk of land. And the Buffalo Soldiers did a tremendous job. They got their name from the Kiowa, the Cherokee, and the Sioux, because these three Indian tribes likened the hair of the Buffalo Soldier to the hide of the buffalo. Yeah, and one other thing about the Buffalo Soldier, and putting him there to protect the settlers, he did an outstanding job. In fact, some historians will tell you that he did his job too well, because there were tremendous clashes between the Buffalo Soldier and the Indian, and he wiped out a lot of Indians. And so what you really had back in that period was one minority wiping out another minority. But they did their job, and they also charged up San Juan Hill with Teddy Roosevelt. Had a tremendous reputation.
Well, eventually, all that baseball training that you had coming up through the schools paid off, didn't it?
Yes.
Tell us about the league that you were part of.
Yes. 1940, my senior year in high school. But it was starting in 39. There were scouts appearing at high school games. I didn't know anything about it. Coach Leo Atkinson never said a word to me about it. Aki was a tremendous man. He didn't want anything disrupting the program that he had in there. And he also knew that you can't tinker with high school athlete until his senior year. So he kept it quiet. In 1940 was when I really found out that there were scouts looking at me. And they had scouts from 8 different teams. But the problem was all the scouts, except one, were white. The black scout was a guy named Judy Johnson. Aki, one of the scouts, all the scouts came up, looked at me, and they didn't get excited because at that time the major leagues weren't integrated. No blacks in the major leagues, except one guy, Eddie Gottlieb from Philadelphia Phillies. He was a scout for the Philadelphia Phillies and the Philadelphia Athletics. He told Aki he'd like to talk to me, and I couldn't believe this, because I always wanted to be in the Negro National League, because that was my destiny. I knew as far as the high as I could go, But when I met this man, he talked to me and he told me what was up, He liked the way I played baseball, and he says, I'm gonna see what I can do for you. So it was near the end of the season. No, it was in May the 6th. I got a letter from Eddie Gottlieb, sent to my coach, Leo Agason, telling me to report to 44th and Parkside. That was the home of the Philadelphia Stars. And man, it was like, you sprouted wings and you're going upward, So I went down. I stayed with the Stars from May 6th until June 16th. That's the day my class graduated. I could only participate on Saturdays and Sundays. And I'm waiting for that contract that they were going to offer me, think it was going to be something big. And I went down and on the 16th, it was a Saturday, and they offered me the contract, $35 a week with stipulations. On the road, they took care of my expenses like food, lodging. If I'm in the city, they took care of that. $35 a week was no money.
Yeah.
Was no money. I'd have starved to death. So I had another friend, another old pro that had played in the league. He told me, why don't you go the route of semi-pro? You can play 2 days a week and make twice as much money as they're offering you for the whole week. And the following day was Saturday was the 16th. The following day I was supposed to go to New York with the team to play in the New York Black Yankees played their home games in Yankee Stadium. And I come home, I was so disturbed and disappointed. I just called him back and told him I was through. Lucky, the guy told me, my friend told me, if you're in doubt as to whether you're going to continue their program, don't sign any contract because they can hold you to it. And that's what I did. I didn't sign the contract. I went the route of semi-pro. And he was right. I made more money playing 2 days a week than I did by signing their contract.
How much did you make?
On Saturdays and Sundays?
Yes.
I'd pick up $85 to $100 for 2 days. If I played one game, I'd get paid $85. It was based on percentage baseball. Percentage baseball is based on how many people are in the stands.
Yes. Well, eventually, though, your baseball career ended. How long did you play ball?
Overall?
Yes.
I played from 1934 to 1954. I played 20 years. But I could have at any time. I could have left, Coatesville and gone to any team I wanted to. I had offers from all over. But I tell you what awakened me. I was playing summer pro baseball, you know,
Yes.
and I came in. I came in one morning, 2:30 in the morning, from Pittsburgh. We played a doubleheader in Pittsburgh. I got in. At the time, I was married. We had 2 children. I tiptoed in, unlocked the door, tiptoed in the house, took my shoes off, undressed, tipped upstairs. I thought my wife was asleep. As soon as I got in bed, she lit on me. She gave me the ultimatum. This is the day, this is the night that you have to make a decision. It's either your family or baseball. And I chose my family. I had offers to go to Canada after that, Cumberland, Maryland, all over, Kansas. I wouldn't leave my family.
But choosing your family brought you back to Coatesville.
You brought me back to Coatesville.
So we're all much better off for your decision.
Well, I thank you, but I know it was the right decision for me. I got a job in Lukens, and I put 38 years in Lukens, and sent my kids to college, and it worked out quite well.
Tell me about your times working with Lukens. 38 years in Lukenweld, I think you told me.
38 years in Lukens, in Lukens proper, up in the steel mill, up in the open hearth and that. That's where most of my time was. And the last 22 years was in the open hearth. The last 16 years was in the office. Lukens was a tremendous place. It was a tremendous place. It had its forms of discrimination, but you know it was everywhere.
How so?
Well, when I first went into Lukens, I could only work 3 places: track gang, labor gang, or scrap hole. These are the only things that were open for blacks. So I went in labor gang, and I worked there for quite a while. And then things were getting better. And then I got a transfer to go into the storeroom to work on a delivery truck there, interplant delivery truck. We delivered material. And I got that job, and I worked there 10 years on that job. And then, once again, somebody upstairs liked me.
Somebody was looking out for you.
Somebody, because they sent me over to the office to take a test. At that time, Lukens was getting a lot of governmental work, and they had, the government had, Lukens had an agreement with the government that a certain percentage of their office force had to be black. And that's why they sent me there. And that's where I stayed until I retired.
Would you share with us a little of your salary history? Can you remember what you started at when you worked at Lukens and how you rose up?
When I started in Lukens, I was making 53.5 cents an hour. And that job, that was in the OUM mill. They had an old iron cart with two iron wheels on it, and they would put little slabs in there and heat them to tremendous heat. And what it would do is melt the scale off these plates, you know, little slabs, and that would come out. It was so hot that would come out like water coming out of a faucet, run out of a little spout over into this two-wheel cart. And I remember vividly the first day on that job. I was burnt all over the face, on the chin, down on my neck. And was one crane runner was up there watching me. He came down. He says, "Hey, Carter." I said, "Yeah." He says, "You're going to kill yourself." I said, "Well, I got to do the job." He said, "Well," he gave me an old coat he had, about 5 times too big, because he was a big man. to put this on and button it up at the top, and then tie it, well, you know, as far as you could go. Then I had to put a piece of string around to tie the top, you know. That stopped the things from going on inside of your thing there. And he got me through the day without getting burnt up. You had to have gloves on and that kind of stuff. So there again, you know, he didn't have to do that, but he did it. So I made it through that. And when I retired, I was the first black to integrate the office in Lucas Steel Company. So I don't have any complaints.
And what type of work did you do in the office?
I was a receiving clerk. I started off as junior receiving clerk and wound up as senior receiving clerk. So I don't complain about life. I've been blessed.
Yes.
And it all was because of somebody like me.
Yes. As you got a little older, you found a new outlet. You took up some paints and brushes and began to paint. Was that your first experience with artwork, or had you been dabbling in it, so to speak, before then?
No, that was, we'll go back to the teachers, the question you asked me about the teachers. In junior high school, there was a lady there, a teacher there by Miss Bernard. She taught art, and she used to always encourage me to stick with art. But I got 6th, 7th grade, I did it. In 8th grade, I started playing baseball and football. And then by the time I got into high school, art was set aside. It was all sports. And but in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be an artist. I could never forget what she told me. And at 60, almost 62 years old, I had retired. I retired, took an early retirement at 57. And I said, all the children were grown, they'd gone their separate ways, and those who wanted to go to college had gone and finished. I said, now, well, time for my wife and I to do whatever we want to do. She was in antiques for 20 years. I was helping her, and I started to paint. I picked up and I took the senior citizens beginners course down here at 5th Avenue in the senior citizen building. And there was a lady there named Marguerite Irwin. I went in there, there was about 12 people in that class. And I guess she noticed that I had a little talent. I remember she gave me the face of a woman. It was in a magazine, a full face of a woman, but she cut it right down through here. And she gives me the left-hand side of it and told me she gives me the right-hand side of it and told me to draw the matching side, which was the left hand. And I did that, took it back to her. She couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe the likeness. And she encouraged me. She helped me a lot. And every time I have a show or whatever, exhibit, she's there. She's really a terrific lady. And I owe a lot of credit to her, too. And I always tell her, every Christmas, I send her Christmas cards, and I tell her, I address it to my art teacher, and thank her for how much she helped me. She always writes me back. She didn't do anything. God did it. That's her reply to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Carter, as an artist, you're probably best known for your work with regard to buildings that were once part of the Underground Railroad system. Can you tell us a little bit about how that concept came to you and what made you think that would be a good project for you to embark on?
Well, Mr. Witmer, I started studying art. I finally, when I started with art, I had 3 female teachers, and then the last lady that I had a heart attack, and I was lost because I didn't know where to go. So someone sent me to John Esworthy in Salisburyville, art teacher. And I went up and talked to John, and I got in his class. This man was tremendous to me. He was really, really, really tremendous, not only a mentor, an artist, but a friend. He taught me most of the stuff that I found out about art, that I picked up about art, I owe it to him. And one day, my great-grandmother was a slave, and I didn't want to get tied up in painting landscapes, seascapes, and mountains and that stuff.
And bowls of fruit.
Yeah, bowls of fruit. I want to do something different. So I got to thinking about my grandmother, and I said, well, maybe I'll try this. So I called Ross Kershey. I'd met Ross. I'd been at a couple of Ross's lectures. And I called Ross and I asked him if he would give me a list of one or two places around Coatesville that were part of the Underground Railroad. And he sent me a list of 4. And one of them I brought with me today, the house right over here.
Okay.
Yeah. And just
I should
before.
make note that the building you're referring to is now the administration
That's
building
it. That's
for the
it.
Coatesville Area School District, more commonly known as the farmhouse.
That is it.
Do you know any of the history on that particular
Yeah,
building?
that building was built, I believe, 1810 or 1812. It was a 165-acre farm owned by a fellow by the name of Gardner. It had 300 feet of tunnel that went under the building and emptied into the woods, headed towards the Vets Hospital. Yeah. And
Which is the woods that is now up on the hillside above our new intermediate high school.
Right, absolutely. And I think one of the Beals owned that place at one time. The Beals were the people that had the big steel mill up in Parksburg. So that was the connection there. To get back to, I'd almost completed that building when in walks a reporter from the old Coatesville Record. She was there to interview John Nesworthy because he was doing a series of historical paintings of Parksburg. And she saw that painting that you're going to see here pretty soon. And she wanted to know who the artist was. And he told her. He gave her my phone number. She called me and asked me if she could interview me. And I said, certainly, it's the first time ever anybody wanted to talk to me, So she came down and we had quite a chat there. She took pictures of it by that time I had it home. And she published that in the old Coatesville Record, and I'm telling you, bells went off. I have never, if I wanted to walk away from painting the Underground Railroad, I couldn't do it.
You couldn't have done it after that.
No, I couldn't have done it because from that article, I get mail all over the country, including Canada. And how these people, and half these people I've never met. I picked these people up through people who have seen articles or either been in somebody's home that had one of these articles or a painting. I had a professor from the University of New Mexico call me, and he wanted a copy of the Buffalo Soldier print. I sent him one of those, and every year he sends me out in New Mexico. This was the roaming grounds of the Buffalo Soldier. He sends me newspaper articles, a big thick package of them. That he gathers up during Black History Month, and he sends me the whole thing. But due to that lady with that from the Coatesville Record, that's a painting that started it all for me.
And you started painting at 62, I think you
62.
said?
I started painting. In September. I went to art class, and I was 62 in October. And Like I say, if I wanted to quit right now, I couldn't quit. I just couldn't quit.
Have you thought of how many paintings you've done? Is there a number that comes to mind?
With the Underground Railroad,
Yes,
I have 77.
77.
Overall, I have 235, but 77 are of the Underground Railroad, and the other 75 are about black athletes. I mean, the other amount of that is about black history, athletes. I got a series on the Black West, blacks who went west with the settlers, the black cowboys, and all that sort of stuff.
So well over 200 paintings then
Yes.
accomplished.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Mr. Carter, we're very glad that you were able to participate in our project here
Thank you,
today.
sir.
You
Thank you.
have certainly put a new aspect on things for us,
Thank you.
and we're glad to have you as a part of it.
Thank you for inviting me, sir. Very my pleasure to be here.